Alright, so like many people, I actually had an issue with my R1, or sorry, excuse me, my R2 not returning. Made it difficult on games like Metro Exodus and most games where you have to pull the trigger. But I always thought it was depressed just a little bit. Um, and if I pulled out on it, it would restore, and then if I let it go, it would start shooting or moving forward or whatever the R2 button, R2 trigger activated. Um, it would be on just even the slightest little bit. Google, I tried it with Google. I sent them a video of the issue. Sorry about that. Of the issue, and they gave me a code to replace my controller. So they gave me, so I ordered one up. They said I don't have to send this one back. I can keep it, but it's no longer under warranty. So, since that's the case, I decided to see if I could fix it. And my first thought was to add an additional spring. So, what it did was I took the controller, and it's a little bit ugly. I admit it's a little bit ugly. I carved out a little spot here, and I carved out a little spot here, and I made a way for the spring to sit. And so I took this little spring here, and so I grabbed a spring out of a clicker pin. I tried a few different springs, and then I ended up having to focus having to cut one off, and then I ended up having to stretch it back out again. So it's it's been quite the ordeal trying to get this thing working again, but I got it. Um, this spring, I'll try and do this while I'm on the video here. Um, so I've got a little notch there because the spring has to be able to compress all the way, because the trigger, the R2 trigger actually compresses all the way down. And then so the spring doesn't fall out, I actually carved a circle in there in the bottom of the R2 trigger. Oh guys. So, it can compress all the way, so I get full range of motion. It's actually quite a bit stouter with this in there. And then if I have any problems with it, I can actually just replace that spring. Um, when you're holding the controller, let me switch hands here. When you're holding the controller, you're either holding it like this, in which case you don't touch the spring, or if you're doing, double finger, which I can't normally do. Either way, you're not touching that. You're not touching the spring, so it doesn't. It's not uncomfortable. Again, it is ugly. I could have probably taken some more time to get it a little bit neater. I could probably still sandpaper it up a little bit to straighten it up a little bit. Um, but that's it. I thought about heating this up and bending it so it's pointed more directly toward that. But I figure what I could do is just stretch the spring out at an angle, which is what I've done, so that it goes through. Again, I have no problems. I have full range of motion, and it works. It pushes back out enough on that. Of course, when my L2 goes out, I'll probably do the same thing, and I'll probably try to get matching springs so they're the same trigger strength. Right now, the L2 is quite a bit leaner to pull on, so long gaming sessions is probably gonna be a little iffy on my finger, but that pushes out on it. It is freaking awesome. If you want to know what I used, I ended up using. I've got this thing. Not gonna brand name it. I got a rotary tool on Amazon. It had this extension, and it came with these little bits. It's a little side cutting bit. It's like a little teeny tiny drill bit that cuts on the side. It's got fluted sides. I think that's what they call it, fluted sides. But I just used that, and I was just careful and trimmed out trimmed out the two sides, made it round, getting underneath it at an angle from both sides. And then I figured out that I had to actually carve out a way for the spring to go because it was actually pointed. It was quite a bit more bowed up when I first did it, and it didn't like it would catch on that. You can hear that there's still a little bit of catch. I don't know. I think it's just rubbing on this plastic right here as it compresses. But it's working. So I now have a modified Stadia controller with an R2 trigger that's functional again. I wouldn't recommend doing this on a controller that's still under warranty, but if they warranty replace it and you get to keep your old controller, hey, now I'm going to have a second controller. I might keep this one as a spare. I don't know. It's my Founders Edition. I won't get another one of those. I didn't get the Founders Edition to have the Founders Edition. I get the Founders Edition to play the game. So, it doesn't bother me that I had to cut the thing up to make it workable. Especially since I'm getting another controller from Stadia for, I guess, nothing, for taking the time to make a video of the issue and chat about it and give them all kinds of information. A couple things to note about that. Number one, do not scratch that label. I got a scratch on that. It was very, very, very difficult to read the serial number off of that. And number two, keep your box. If you haven't kept your box, always keep your box. Apparently, they want a picture of the Stadia controller, the box, and the serial number in order to get that replaced. It was a little bit of a struggle, but they ended up replacing it. I guess I took good enough pictures that they were able to figure out what my serial number was off of the high-res pictures that I sent them. Anyway, if you're going to try this, good luck. If you have any questions, give them to me in a comment down below. I'll see if I can answer them. Again, it's pretty basic. Just be careful. Don't stick your tool in there too far. And go from there. All right.